Hello again, my little Goovacer, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through step by step my tournament Tau army list. I know, me with Tau, after all of the shade that I've thrown at that faction. Well, all I can say is, the fault is not mine, sir. Major livestream must answer. You see, in a recent stream, I was petitioned, forced against my will, to take Tau to the next tournament I am going to. And well, this is the result. And so without further ado, I'm not going to drag this one out, guys. I don't want to punish you or myself like that. Let's mount up in our devilfish and rail can our way right into today's episode.
Attention conscripts, I am excited to announce the launch of the official second Mordian Glory channel. If you're curious, click on the link down in the description and head over to Mordian Glory Games. I upload to the channel several times a week with all sorts of fun and silly gaming content. So if you're jonesing for even more Mordian Glory content, then head on over to Mordian Glory Games and don't forget to subscribe.
So all Tau memes aside, let's get into this list. And as always, let's begin with a little bit of context. What are my thoughts behind this army? Why am I, generally speaking, running the units that I'm running? Well, to be honest, this is kind of just the army that I've got, because it's not actually mine, it's on loan from my brother. My brother has his own YouTube channel, by the way, Scholar Progenium. Go and check it out. And he mostly covers bolt action stuff. He doesn't really play 40k anymore. And so as a result, he has very kindly long-term loaned me his Tau army so I can use it for things like battle reports and also for tournament reports. And so when I was putting this list together, I kind of wanted to stick with that vibe. A classic feeling Tau army with Fire Warriors and Pathfinders and Devilfishes and Hammerheads, but also include a few of the more modern and meta units which people have been having success with. And there were a couple of reasons for doing this. Firstly, because it's cool to have a slightly more retro feeling Tau army. And secondly, it is what I am most familiar with, either playing with myself or, more importantly, what I'm used to playing against. I grew up for years playing against this Tau army. And of course, rules have changed and additions have come and gone, but the general principles and how it has been successfully operated by my brother over the years are still there. You've got infantry for sort of screening, we've got hammerheads for doing firepower, we've got stealth suits and battle suits for being a bit more mobile. And so I wanted to use an army which I was comfortable with and had a bit of transferable experience with. But lastly, and possibly the most important reason for this style of Tau army, is I kind of wanted to run a really well-balanced Tau list. I wasn't overly skewing in any direction. I've not gone all battle suits. I've not gone all hammerheads. I've not gone all infantry or anything mad like that. We've just got a little bit of everything. And this is not the most meta Tau army. And in a funny sort of way, I would kind of describe it as a guardified Tau army. This really could be directly translated into the guard, with things like the Fire Warriors representing guardsmen, the Devilfishes representing chimeras, the Hammerheads representing Leman Russes, the Riptide maybe being like a Rogal Dawn, and then some of the smaller battle suits which can deep strike down and do damage, kind of leading into that Scion vibe. So this is my guard style Tau army, and in my experience it has been very, very effective. But with that said, now let's get into the real reason why you're all here. Let's get into the nitty gritty and look at the units in the list. First things first, I am running this in the Mont-Ka detachment. I really like lethal hits. As an Imperial Guard player, I think lethals are great. And as I'm trying to run this as a guardified Tau army, it felt right having lots of lethals in the army. As for the first units we're going to look at, well, I suppose we should stick to tradition with the Infantry Corps. Every day in the Corps is like a day on the farm. Every meal a banquet, every paycheck a fortune, every formation a parade. I love the Corps. In this Infantry Corps, we have got 4 units of Fire Warriors. These are, I believe, called strike teams, and they have got pulse rifles. Now, I've also given each squad a Guardian drone. I love Guardian drones. I am so surprised that we don't see more Fire Warriors in Tau lists. If you don't know, Guardian's drones give your whole squad a -1 to wound against ranged attacks. That's all the time. If someone's hitting you with strength 3, you're still -1 to wound. If someone's hitting you with strength 4, you're -1 to wound. It doesn't matter if the strength is higher than your toughness or equals your toughness, it's always just -1 to wound. Combine that with the fact they have a 4+ save, they can get up to a 3+ save in cover, and you have some damn durable chaff. And in my practice games with this, and in my experience with using this sort of configuration of Tau Fire Warrior, these 10 little Fire Warrior squads can be really good screening chaff, because people want to try and clear them away so that they can go in for the assault, and because they've got the -1 to wound from ranged attacks, it makes them phenomenally annoying for your opponent to deal with. Not only are they going to be a screening force in my army, but of course also they're a great source of guiding. Remember, with Tau, you don't have orders like in the Guard where you just pick a unit and it gets +1 to hit. You have to have pairs of units. This unit can pair with a Hammerhead, and then it can give the Hammerhead +1 to hit against a specific target. And Fire Warriors, being relatively cheap, they come in at 75 points a squad, are just a great way of pushing screens forward and then designating those targets so that your firepower can be really effective. They're bodies and they're also force multipliers. But speaking of guiding and marker lights and all that good stuff, we've got the other half of the Infantry Corps, which is these 2 mechanized units of Pathfinders. Pathfinder squads inside Devilfishes. Now the Devilfishes have got the smart missiles and the seeker missiles, and they've got the accelerated burst cannons, and the Pathfinders have got the rail rifles and the semi-automatic grenade launchers. As for the drones, I've given each squad a recon drone. Now what's interesting is the recon drone does allow you to infiltrate, but the main reason I'm taking it is because it's got a burst cannon. I have other infiltrators in this army, and if I do need to infiltrate these guys, I can do, but the main reason I'm taking them is because of scout. I really like having scouts inside transports. You guys know this from my scout mirrors, and this is one of the cheaper ways of doing it. I kind of plan on using these Pathfinders to scout in their transports so that they can either move forward early on to objectives, or they can get into a better position where they can always get those angles, always be marker lighting things. And considering that Pathfinders can guide 2 units each, there is a lot of potential here where I could have these 2 units guiding all of my main firepower with my Hammerheads and my Riptides. There's also the non-zero chance that I might want to hit the enemy hard and fast early on. And considering that the Devilfish allows me to move and advance and then get out, a little bit like the Taurox, my Pathfinders can be quite good for boosting forward, jumping out, and then I can guide them with the Devilfish or another unit, and then they can deliver like a point-blank volley. I know a lot of people are going to be saying, Mordian, if you want to do that kind of stuff, you really should be taking breaches, and I absolutely agree with you. I just don't own any breaches, so this is kind of my wish.com breach squads. Also, breaches are kind of expensive. You do have to pay for the breach squad, and then you've got to pay for the Devilfish. Breaches are more expensive than Pathfinders, and then you've got to pay for the character and the enhancement to give them scout. And then if you really want to go whole hog, you've got to put like a Fireblade in each one of the squads, and that just really adds up to some very expensive 10-man squads. And really, in a lot of Tau lists, they're the only infantry you have. And I see so many Tau players take those breacher death balls, yeet them up the board, jump out and blast things, and then in the clapback they lose all their infantry, and then they lose like their objective control. And that's not how we do things in the Guard, and that's not how I want to do things here. I want to have objective control to call upon, and I want my infantry to be a resource that I use well and I husband, because I want to have tools in the toolbox. I want to have both firepower, which as you can see I clearly have, but I also want to have other things I can lean on as well. So this solid core of like 60 bodies, 40 of which are on foot, 20 of which are mechanized, it really gives me a lot of objective play. It gives me a lot of force multiplication, and on its own there's a lot of firepower here. At the end of the day, don't underestimate those strength 5 pulse weapons, especially with lethal hits and the volume out of fire they can put out. There really is a lot of supporting fire here that can add up, chip off a few wounds, and still contribute to the fight, whilst also really supporting the rest of my army. Speaking of the rest of my army, let's take a look at the armoured core, the big boom boom of the list. Here we have 3 hammerheads. Each hammerhead is equipped with accelerated burst cannons, 2 of the Seeker missiles, and then we have got 2 with the rail cannons, and we've got 1 with the ion cannons. Now, the rail cannons are obviously the cooler weapon, and they do look really, really good, and they're also probably the more powerful weapon as well. But they are only one shot, and we do live in a world of Tyrannofexes and other abilities that can just blank the damage. And so ideally I would like to have all of these with rail cannons. I only have the 2, but even so I think it almost forces me to have a little bit of flexibility in the list, because the ion cannon is like a sort of battle cannon for the guard really. It's got strength 8, AP -2, which is nice, that flat damage 3, and so my thinking is that the rail cannons are of course going to be, you know, snapping necks, cashing checks, going after those big beasties that just need a rail cannon round put through one side and out the other. But in case I come across a lot of invulnerable saves, and yes, they do dev wounds, but even so, in case I come across some invulnerable saves, or in case I come across someone who's got that blank damage, I've got the ion cannon. And it's also important to note that hammerheads are not quite the same as Leman Russes. Now that might sound obvious, but bear with me. A Leman Russ Vanquisher, which is very similar to a railhead, has got the one big gun, but it's also then got a las cannon and plasma cannons and a hunter killer missile and a heavy stubber, and so it's also got volume. It's got volume of other high strength, high AP, high damage weapons. The hammerhead has got the burst cannons, which are okay, but they're anti-chaff. And then once the Seeker missiles are gone, you're kind of down to just paying for that one shot. And so I really feel like you do need a little bit of volume, a little bit of ion to support your rail. Speaking of ion, we have got a Riptide, just the one. I know most people like to spam the crap out of these things, but I've found just one cheeky Riptide is enough to get the job done. The ion gun has a really reliable number of shots. You can of course overcharge it, and you've got the missile drones as well, and then you've got the twin plasma on this guy. This is just essentially my 4th damage dealing unit. Those of you that follow my guard lists always know I like to have my infantry core, and then when it comes up to my damage dealers, I like to have 4 or 5 of them. And well, this is kind of my 4th big boom boom gun. It's got a little bit more reliability and a little bit more durability to it than my hammerheads. Hammerheads have got a decent amount of wounds, but they're only sort of what, T10 with a 3-up save. They're definitely susceptible to a few las cannons and melter guns, whereas the Riptide, yeah, it's only T9, but it's got that sweet 2-up save, and it's got that inbuilt 4+ invulnerable save as well. So I'm kind of using this as like a Rogel Dawn equivalent. But whilst we're on the topic of battle suits, we might as well take a look at the rest of them in the army, and we'll begin with the next biggest one. We've got a cheeky Ghost Keel. Ghost Keels are really interesting because they've got lone operative, and they actually have 2 blank damages, but their damage outputs, it leaves a little bit to be desired. I've equipped mine with the fusion gun and then the big fusion blaster gun as well. The fusion blaster gun does have a longer range, and it is a surprising strength 12, but I'm really looking at this guy and thinking he's kind of lone op, he's kind of annoying, he's a bit of a harasser, but he's definitely not a main damage dealer, and I don't consider him to be one. I consider him to be annoying, a bit of a distraction kind of effects, and I kind of expect him to absorb a lot more damage than he has any right to do so. And whilst my opponent is trying to deal with my frustrating Ghost Keel, they won't be putting firepower into my other units. So he's definitely more of a distraction with just enough firepower to have to be dealt with, but not enough firepower where I'm really relying on him to do any damage in my army. If I'm going to be totally honest with you guys, he's in the list because, well, I need him in the list to make up the points. It was either him or a whole bunch of Kroot, and to be honest, I already have enough infantry in this army. I didn't need any more Kroot. If I could, I probably would swap him out with something else. Maybe that could do a bit more damage. But next we have got the Crisis teams. I have got 2 of the Melter Crisis teams that come with their invulnerable save, those 4 invulnerable saves, and they've got the twin melter guns each. I believe these are the Sunforge ones, and they're there to drop down and just blast things. I'm kind of thinking about them as like a Scion Gigablob, but one that can actually go after vehicles effectively, thanks to the rerolls to hit and the rerolls to damage. One of those squads is going to be led by a commander. This is my very old school Crisis commander. Obviously that is a Legends unit now, and this guy is a legend. Like half the parts on him, I kid you not, are actually metal. Got like an original Cyclic Ion Blast and all that kind of stuff. But he is going to be an Enforcer battlesuit today, and he is going to be armed with 4 melter guns. Now, of course, I know this guy isn't strictly WYSIWYG, and I do apologise for that. And also, his dimensions are probably not 100% correct. Don't worry, guys. Obviously, when I'm at the tournament, I will make sure that there's no modelling for advantage going on, and I will always be giving my opponent the benefit of the doubt. If they think, oh, I can just about see him, I'll say, yes, of course you can. He should be a little bit bigger anyway. So I'll be making sure that everything is done fairly to avoid any issues. If any of you are wondering why I've gone so whole hog on all of the Melter guys, it's because, well, in 10th edition, you face a crap load of vehicles. Most people aren't really bringing that much infantry, and if you kind of look at the rest of the list, I've got accelerator burst cannons everywhere, pulse weapons everywhere. I don't really need to worry about light infantry, and to a great extent, I don't really need to worry about medium infantry either, because I've got iron cannons and stuff in here. What I need is just to make sure that I can handle mass armor, mass big bugs and stuff like that. And so going all in on the anti-tank seems like the best way to go. I've run a few lists recently where I've tried to have an equal split between sort of anti-infantry and anti-armor, and honestly, I've always found that I wish I just had more anti-armor. This is 10th edition. Your incidental firepower can generally deal with infantry, and if the infantry is particularly tough like Custodes, you're probably going to wish you had anti-tank guns for dealing with them anyway. My philosophy in this edition is go big or go home, and always be bringing more anti-tank no matter what. But to support these guys in their tank busting duties, I have got myself 3 stealth teams. Now this proves my OG status and the OG status of this Tau army, because these are all original metal XV15 stealth suits. The best stealth suits that GW ever made. In fact, my brother has in total 12 of these models, and they are one of our most cherished possessions, because the new battle suits, the new stealth suits, they're just not great, are they? GW, you really need to re-release these old ones, remaster them, because they just clearly are so much better than the weird, goofy ones that came out, quite a few years ago. The OG XV15s are where it's all at. Each one of these squads is going to have a Shazwi with a fusion gun and 2 guys with burst cannons, and then there's going to be a marker drone and a shield drone on each sergeant. The idea is going to have 2 of these squads infiltrate forward, and they'll be able to guide things early on and also harass the enemy, and then I'm going to have 1 little squad in reserve doing the equivalent of 5-man Scion duties, and essentially dropping down and getting secondaries like behind enemy lines. But that just about covers it all. So that is my 2000 point Montcat Gardified Classic Tau army with a few more modern units in it. I think that this has got a lot of tools in the toolbox, and I do think that in many ways it is atypical for a Tau army. Whenever I see other Tau armies out there, I always see them just loaded up with as much firepower as possible, and they don't really have those extra tools like infantry and stuff. But I'm hoping that by applying the guard principles to the Tau army, that it might end up being quite effective. Or it might end up completely falling apart because this is just not the way the army is meant to be run. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Of course, I am fully expecting to be absolutely lambasted for taking Tau, but aside from all of those comments, which I fully encourage, let me know what you think of the army. How do you think it's going to do? I'm taking it to an RTT. What do you think my score is going to be? 1 and 2, 0 and 3, 3 and 0? Let me know. If you enjoyed today's episode, as always, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode.
Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.